Hey, friends, and welcome to the SoulFire Sessions at the intersection of passion and purpose, where you align with what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host tonight, Alex, and I am so grateful that you are here. We are all about reclaiming clarity, rebuilding confidence, and designing a future that fits you. So take a breath, feel the spark, and let's step into the fire. Hey guys! Today I am joined by Leanne Zakar. She is an actress, speaker, author, and a spiritual medium. And as a medium, she knows that life is short. She told me that after going through a divorce and feeling sort of disconnected with herself, she rebuilt her spark by returning to her passion for dance. And from there, she took some brave steps towards creating a courageous, fulfilling life, one without regret this time. So everyone, welcome Leanne. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So great to be here, Alex. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and for those that are listening, Leanne is in Australia, which is
Yes.
amazing. This is our first global guest. Yes.
First international guest. I love it. So honored to be the
Yes.
first one.
I love it. Thank you so much for saying yes to me.
Thank you for having me. It was great. We connected before and we had a great vibe, and we're both really about the same things. You know, even in your intro, it's like literally everything that aligns that I love to talk about and re-sparking. So it's the perfect fit.
Yes, I love it. Well, let's start with just telling us a little bit about your journey that we talked about in the intro.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I went through a period of really disconnecting with myself. I'd put on 14 kilos of what I call sadness. I was towards the end of a marriage that, we weren't happy in, and there was a lot of stuff going wrong. I was an entrepreneur as well, and I was bike pedaling 7 years for this business. And my body started breaking down. All these things were going wrong. It was like my body's knocking on the door. Oh, you're not listening? Let me just throw this one in. Oh, that didn't get through to you? Cool. How about this? Until eventually my hair started falling out. And my hairdresser
Wow.
was like, look, just to let you know, there's more coming out than there should be. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm calling it a hair, about everything else
Yeah.
under the sun. And so I wrote a post on my business and I said, that's it, to get your orders in 2 days and the store is closing. And then it was a time to start, my marriage ended, there was COVID, and there was a time in between that I needed to rediscover myself and return to my spark. I feel like where has it gone? Somewhere along the line, you lose connection with yourself and you look at yourself in the mirror and think, where did I go? Where's my
Yeah.
spark? And for somebody like me who is bubbly and radiant naturally and, effervescent, I like to say, that's a big deal. Like, it's a big deal for anyone. But when you're uber bubbly, it's like, wow, where did I go? Am I even that person anymore? So that's a big hit to the heart when you realize that. So I returned to my past passion, which was Latin dancing. And I talk about that first private lesson in the studio. And if you know a dance studio, there's mirrors everywhere. There's no
Yes.
getting out of seeing yourself. And, when you're not really happy with what you're looking at, it's quite confronting. And I couldn't believe who I was and what I was looking at and who I'd become and this body I was living in. Who is this person? And when the beautiful teacher is saying, and now flow and arms, and you're like, what? I can't even do this. This isn't me at all. I've lost touch with my body. I've lost touch with my feminine flow. This feels awkward and stiff and horrible and not me. And I cried, and it was awful. But fast forward a year later, and I danced with that same teacher, Claudio, and he said to me, wow, you've come alive again, really. And
Wow.
this is the perfect word when you rediscover that the spark within you, everything else comes alive again, and you really are reborn. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to open the door for the next steps of life. And so I'm still dancing. It's still my everything. It's still my, moving meditation. It's my connection. It's my socializing. It's all of the wonderful things. And I lost the weight. I rebuilt my confidence. And, it's from that place, as I said, when you're rebuilt, that you can feel brave enough to step into the next chapter. And so that was one of the major beginning points for me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us, because I know it's really hard sometimes to, one, relive those moments, but two, be vulnerable. So I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of our listeners can resonate with that too, right? Like, it might not specifically be divorce, but it could be a major event that happened in their life. I think we've all been there. And if we haven't, we're human. So we probably will at some point.
Absolutely.
It just takes you out, and you do wake up one day and you're like, what happened? Whether it's a weight gain or an identity crisis or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And so it's interesting that dance brought you back to that place. I love that. The thing that I kept hearing through all of that was this courage that you found to, even though that first time you went into the dance studio, you were like, who am I? This is not easy. I don't know what I'm doing. You still kept going and kept doing it. And then a year later, there was just so much growth from that.
Absolutely. And I hate to say it because I love everything about the dance world, but when you're a beginner, people who have been dancing for many years don't necessarily want to dance with you because, it's boring.
Yes.
If you can, only do basic steps and you're stiff and all of that. And so I remembered that, and so it's very important to me now that I give back, if you want to think about it as a giving back. But I mean, obviously I love to dance with my friends and the people I have a great dance connection with. But I always want to dance with new people, because how are they going to get better and how are they going to have that opportunity if people aren't, dancing with them? So that's important for me too. So absolutely. We're all there. And as you said, at some point in our life, no matter what it is, whether it's work, family crisis, something is going to hit. And the courage and the strength, every wave that we go through builds us for the next one, because there's going to be a next one. Doesn't matter how old you are, there's going to be a next one. And so we get stronger and stronger through the waves. That I like to surf on the waves rather than drown in them.
Right?
Yeah.
And you just build your toolbox of resources that help you. And so, next time it happens, let me pull these tools out to get me through the next one. I love that.
Absolutely. And you don't necessarily, drop so low. Like there's a drop, but you don't have to drop to rock bottom, which is good. It's a great feeling. Nobody wants to be there. I mean, the only way is up, as they say, but yeah. And so using that tool for me, the dancing, and for somebody else it might be painting or sport or whatever it is, I'm really fond of it being something with a group, because for longevity we know that social connection is huge. And so you're getting that within a group, whether it's a book club, whatever it is, or an online something if you can't get away from home. And that social connection is really important as well. And then from there, when you're feeling strong, then you feel solid foundations to say, okay, what's next? What's my next move? What is still calling me that hasn't been done yet? What piece of me needs to come out that hasn't been seen? Or, and we talked about living a life without regret. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I read was a book by Nurse Bronnie Ware. It was called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the first was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And that hit home for me. I was, single mom, wanting to leave a legacy for my children. Like, I was literally thinking, when they're at my funeral, what are they going to be saying about me? Oh, she was the best mom. Yes, I am. Great. Thank you. But what else? What have I left? And it doesn't have to change the world, but maybe it's just changing your patch, you know? And I've been volunteering and working with children in the community for a decade because that changing our patch and raising the world and making the world a better place from the grassroots up is very important to me, as is supporting others. And so when you put all the pieces together, you say, okay, what's next? What do I want to leave? What message do I want people to say about me? And look back and what would they think? How did I leave people making them feel? Or what did I add value to the world? And so we rebuild ourselves, and then we're in a place that we can look at that. And so that there's a statistic that says 50% of people have significant feelings of regret at the end of their day. And
Wow.
I said, yeah, don't want to be part of that group. Let's all be part of the other group, right? Because life is short and we want to look back with pure contentment, with, it's better to have tried and failed than never to have tried at all. And I think if we look back and go, wow, I did that, kind of sucked, but that's okay, I did it, which is better than,
Yes.
oh God, I didn't even try. And now it's the end. So all of
Yeah.
these points came through to me and really propelled me forward into being brave and being courageous and taking steps into what the next move was going to be, the next chapter.
I love that you said, even if you fail, it's okay, because we've
Yeah,
talked about failure on the show before. And for me, I think failure is important because sometimes it tells you, like, okay, well, you tried that and it was not for you, and that's okay. You know, okay, check that off. Let's move on to something else.
absolutely.
But I also feel like there's always, always a lesson and growth in that failure. What did you learn and how did you change as a person from that failure? You know?
Absolutely. That is a really important mindset to have. And if we can set our kids up with that, imagine the world. I'm always say to the kids, like, your job is to just keep trying things. Try it, didn't work. Tried it. Oh, that kind of felt good. What was good about that? But unless you're prepared to look at what can I take from it, and whether that's, jobs that may fit or not, whether it's relationships, friendships, because we all go through ones that work and ones that don't. And if we can look at what went wrong, what can I take, what was my part, and what do I learn from this, then it's not failure at all. It's actually,
Yeah.
yeah, success, because that moves us into a stronger place. And so I think that's a really important mindset to have for everybody. Yeah.
Yes. I think in a previous episode, we talked about psychological safety in the workplace. And so I sort of think about what that looks like outside of the workplace. So when I'm on an entrepreneurial endeavor, or I want to learn Latin ballroom dancing, or I want to paint and I'm not good at painting,
Yeah.
I have a community. To your point, we have a community of friends and family members and people around us that love us. And they sort of provide that place of psychological safety for us to try new things. And so when we fail, we still have a place to land, people who still love us and support us and maybe laugh with us when my painting looks horrific. But I tried it, right?
Absolutely, you tried it, and it feels so good. It feels so good to push yourself outside your comfort zone. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will go back and do it again, but you tried it, and it unlocks a flow within you, I think. It unlocks every little brave step, makes the next brave step so much easier. It just unlocks flow in your life and bravery and courage and fun and joy. And unless
Yes.
we're feeling those things, we're not likely to want to try the next thing and be
Yeah,
brave. Yeah.
absolutely. So you went on this rebuilding, healing journey, and then you sort of figured out, okay, what's next? And then what happened?
So I have been a spiritual medium for around a decade at least. Um, Training very hard, weekly training, weekend workshops, staying in the beautiful Blue Mountains for week-long retreats and learning from international mediums. It very in-depth training. And yet I still had imposter syndrome. I still had judgment as well. What are people going to think of me if I do this? And so for a decade, I I didn't work professionally with it. My intimate circle knew about it. It was a huge part of me. You don't dedicate that many years to learning something that's not a big part of you.
Yeah.
So the next step was like, I need to do this. I need to show my boys how to live brave and authentic. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. At least I tried, as we said, you know. And I always talk about needing to put my big girl pants on. Still do it now. Just, okay, put the big girl pants on. We can do this, you know. And rev yourself up a little bit. So I was thinking, okay, it's time. We need to do this. And I went along actually to a reading myself at the Mind Body Spirit Festival with a beautiful lady named Deb. And within the first few minutes, she took my birthday and did some numerology. And within the first couple of minutes of a half an hour reading, I was already in tears because she said, you need to be working, like your life purpose is to be working with people, spirituality and people who are mourning. And I was like, I hadn't told her, but I was like, I'm a medium. Like it fits so perfectly. How many jobs are working with people who are mourning in a
Right.
spiritual sense? And it was just the confirmation that I needed. Like, I'm like, thank you, universe. Just needed somebody to give me that extra little nudge. And she said, why don't you go up and ask the organizer? And so it was one of these, you know, put the big girl pants on. I was like, oh. So I walked over and, you know, hi. And I know a couple of people that have worked here before. And I trained with this lady. And so, you know, I'd love to know if you're looking for people. And he said, oh, look, it's really hard to get a job here. We just have our usuals and they come to Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne and repeat. So only if somebody was really sick or, you know, it'd be very last minute. So I said, okay, that's fine. You know, I thought that was something. And I'll send you my stuff. And then he paused and said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, oh, like the big girl pants came off very quickly. No. I said, no, oh, I've got my kids. You know, I can't do this weekend. And the show is every 6 months. So I said, you know, I'll send you my stuff. There was no way I was ready to, like,
All
you know,
right.
in less than 24 hours. So I worked really, really hard in those 6 months, not on my mediumship, but on my tarot reading, because that's a big part of what a lot of people are looking for there. And I'd been reading intuitively for many years, but I wanted to go deeper. And I manifested like crazy. I bought the tablecloth. I wrote it in my calendar. It was done. I was doing this. And sure enough, I thought, oh, if I'm lucky, 3 days before, somebody will be sick if I'm lucky. Sorry. But 3 weeks out, he called and said, we'd love you to
Wow.
be part of it. And you'll be on table 3, row green. And 3 is my favorite number. And green's his favorite number and one of mine. And so I was like, yep, this was meant to be. I've got my 3 table and super happy. And have worked there for years now. I remember the first day I posted on social media between offering my services there and getting the first job there. And sort of, it's like a coming out. You know, I posted and it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. I could finally be authentically me. No masks, no apologies, just me. And it felt amazing. And I didn't know why I'd waited so long. Why did I wait so long? Such a big part of me that had been dampened in a relationship, that I had judgment about myself or what people would think of me. And really, if people are going to judge you, that's on them. And if it's part of your friendship group, are they really your friendship group if you can't be yourself? And so if
Right.
people are going to flow in and out of your life through your new seasons, and you're unfolding and you're unraveling, then maybe they're not the ones that are really meant to be in your life. And so again, it comes down to this confidence. I know who I am. I'm prepared to lose whatever needs to flow out of my life because this feels so good being just me,
Yeah.
just me. And, you know, we wear so many masks in relationships, at work, at home, with friends. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could just be our just normal self every day in every scenario. And then if you've got a birthday party and there's a work friend there, and you can still just be you. You don't have to have all the masks on. And so that's a big part of what I love to help people with, is removing this mask, becoming your authentic you and shining from there. And then everything just feels, again, the courage, the confidence, so much easier. So that was my flow into mediumship, and I had my own, clients, and it just was so nourishing and fulfilling to finally just be that. And I remember there was a girl at school pickups that I used to look at, and she'd come out in her boho outfits, and I'm not all witchy poo, like I don't do
Right.
just a little, like, because it's me, a little bit boho. But she used to just float in and float out and be herself. And I used to think, wow, like, just, it's inspiring, and when you talk about one thing, then you can reignite the next person. And so she inspired me. And hopefully, my words and your words, Alex, and the work that you're doing will inspire others. It just takes that first step. And I'll jump into an even smaller first step. I started with a sticker that said, "Never let anyone dull your sparkle." And I
I
put
love
that,
that.
yeah, I put that above my light switch in the bathroom. And that was like, I was still married. It was the very, very first step when I realized, where have I gone? What's going on? I am dulled, disconnected. And I would look at it every day. And that was the very first tiny micro step. And it can be that small. It's got to start somewhere. So when people, they might think, well, I don't have time to jump straight into a painting, volleyball, dancing, whatever it is, start with something. And whether it's a cup
Yeah.
of tea, grounding your feet outside in the sunshine, and you're gifting yourself that 5 minutes, take some breaths, have a cup of tea, and that's how you nourish yourself. That is the first step. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
That was a lot, but love this. So like when Leanne and I met, she told me part of the story, and my favorite part of the story was she said I had imposter syndrome, and that's not my favorite part, but that was the beginning. Um, and I think a lot of us do that in all areas of our life. We have this fear, or we don't think we're good enough, or, well, I am good, but I'm not as good as her or him. And we sort of
Absolutely.
dampen our own sparkle. We dull our own sparkle. We get in our own way. And that could be from many reasons, right? Maybe somebody told you something and now that's in your brain, or you haven't healed yet. And so I actually had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and she was telling me, before you can be your authentic self, you have to heal from your past. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes. And so I love that that was the first part of your story tonight. Like, it just resonated with me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so when you told me in our conversation, you said, I hid for a decade and because of I didn't want to be judged. But now that I'm thinking, like, as you built up your resources and tools during your rebuilding process and you found that courage, that sort of carried into this, because she said, go talk to the organizer. How many people are going to be like, sir, I know you organized this entire festival, but I would like to talk to you because this is what I am supposed to do with my life, you know?
Absolutely.
But you did that, even though you were like, nope, not tomorrow. That's okay. You still said, I will be ready in 6 months. And then you committed to that. And so
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing the sticker comment too, because I think oftentimes we do that, right? Like, I have sticky notes on my bathroom mirror, like, you can do this, all these like sayings just to read every morning that are sort of affirmations for
I
me
love that.
to get
Yeah.
through my day, and sort of reminders like, you might feel like you have imposter syndrome, but it's not real. It's fake news. It's
Yes, I love that. It's so true. And I love when people have the stickers, or they get the lipstick and they write on the mirror. I
yeah.
did that for a little while too. And it is fake news. Our brain is always trying to trick us. It's always trying to stay safe.
Yes.
And if we can think about all the reasons of what can go wrong, surely we can think about all the reasons of what can go right. And it feels
Absolutely.
much better. It's a much higher vibration to sit in, and that's when we can call in the things. So, yeah, I love that. I love, we do need stuff to build ourselves up. Unfortunately, we are wired from all of our experiences in life, from our
Yes.
community, from our parenting, from, religion, friendships, different experiences. And as you said, different things that people have said. I'll share something that still stayed with me. When I was in year 11, I think it was the geography teacher, should I say? The teacher, and I was at this school that had really high achievers. And the teacher said, "All right, everybody, I want you to write down what you think you'll get in your HSC on a piece of paper." Now, I'm a creative. I was up there with drama, but maths is not my forte. So I worked my butt off, to get like 65 in maths sort of thing, in the bottom maths as well. And so I'm thinking, what do I write here? And so I wrote 65. I ended up getting much better than that, just by the way. I've got to put that out there. I wrote 65
Yes.
and I said to the teacher, "Do you think that's too much for me?" I'm talking HSC, not just one class. "Do you think that's too
Right.
much for me?" And she said, "No, I think that's good for you, Leanne." Can you imagine growing up thinking that's it? That's my level. That's what I'm worth. That's what people think of me. That's how smart I am. That's all I've got? And that has stayed with me. In fact, I talk about it with my kids all the time because I've got these two boys that barely lift a finger and they're in the 90s. And I had to work so hard. And you're in advanced maths, getting 90s, and I had to work so hard for the bottom, you know. So it's so much. It's our teachers, it's the friends it's a random comment and it can stick with us. And this is all the clearing, as you have said, we need to do the healing. This is all the clearing out that we need to do. And it's lifelong work. As I said, I'm
Yes.
still putting my big girl pants on every time I have to do something, but it just gets a little bit easier? You don't have to pull
Yeah.
them up so tight. They just pop on.
It's just a little nudge. Yeah.
So yeah, we have all of this wiring and all of other people's rubbish that they've put on us, and it gets into our head and it becomes our inner voice, and so we're battling with that
Yes.
non-truth. That's our inner voice
Fake
that
news.
isn't fake news. I loved that, fake news. So absolutely agree with you there.
That's yes. All of that is yes. And I have had experiences with like that too, where somebody says something to you
Absolutely.
and it just becomes your truth. And then, as an adult, I'm working through some of these things and I'm like, why did I ever let that take over my whole life? Like I thought that my whole life and it was one offhanded comment,
Absolutely.
which is
And then the
crazy,
damage
but
it does.
that's life. Yeah. And you have to undo it. And so
Exactly.
well,
I
I would like to pivot to your book because you have a new book.
I
So
do.
tell us all about it.
Here it is, the soul nudge.
Yay!
There it
Oh, it's
is.
beautiful. I love the
Thank
cover.
you. I actually designed it myself.
Very
Designed the cover
good.
myself. So the soul nudge came about when I was rebuilt, and I was starting to listen to the whispers inside me. This is not done. There is more. Even with the mediumship, I was like, there's more. I've done this now but there's something else. And I'd had a calling to speaking for quite a number of years. And I wanted to speak to children, which I already do. Like I go into high schools and I speak to children. And so I wanted to create, and I'd done a primary school ethics teaching, again, let's make everyone kinder and then the world will be
Yes.
amazing and we won't have the bullies and, all of these things that break us down. So I had wanted to create a program to speak into schools. But then, COVID happened and all sorts. And I had, again, somebody say to me, "Oh, too much red tape in schools, unless you're a policeman or an Olympian or a somebody." too much red tape. So that gets inside your head, right? And then I was headhunted to come and work for the community here in the Northern Beaches, and I deliver Love Bites, which is a wonderful program in high schools about healthy relationships in a nutshell.
Good.
So I'm building on this, there's more, and I step into this speaking journey, which really fills my cup, really fills my soul, and I feel like I'm using all of the elements of my life, the acting background, which makes speaking so much easier because you're used to being on stage, the mediumship, the life is too short, like we've got to make the best of it. And I was sitting down one day on the couch and I just had a download. I just kind of must have been in the flow. I just said, oh my goodness, I'm going to write a book. And I went and got my laptop and I just punched out these 3 sections. It's a really, it's like a little inspirational book. So every page has, all these things that we talked about being on the mirror, and so there's 3 sections that really say, imagine getting to the end of your life and looking back, and regretting because you've missed out doing stuff and you've hidden yourself for long enough and all of the cycle of that. And then there's the what if. What if taking that step opens the doors to your dreams? What if it opens the doors to your bravery and breakthroughs? What if it turns out to be the life you always wanted to live, bigger than you could imagine, better than you could imagine? And so I just wanted, it's called the soul nudge. It's, a little chat to our heart, a little chat to our soul to give you a nudge along. So there's some hard truths in there, but in my typical style of very, very soft and fluffy, it's very lovingly delivered, and meditation at the end to help people really reconnect with that part of them that says, what is not done? And I love the idea of, imagine you're writing a book about your life or you're walking through a museum. What stories would you want to see in there that would make you proud? And so that's the guiding light of, I really wanted to do that. And that's the motivation and the inspiration. And I thought that would help people take these courageous steps like I have, and through a beautiful, inspiring, loving, gentle book. And you can sort of read it all the way through, or you can read it page by page and just ponder, each thought each day, or flip it open to anywhere. I did an author talk at the local library last week, which was phenomenal. It was so exciting. So I gave away some books and I did a talk, and the feedback was really wonderful. And so it's just heartwarming because that's what I put it out for. I put it out once again, just coming back to this core value of raising the world. And if we're all vibrating high and if we're all living our best life, imagine how we're going to treat each other. There's none of this, jealousy. There's none of you can't do. There's only being in each other's court and raising each other up. And I'm fortunate that I've pretty much had friends like that my entire life, that I can say, wow, guess what? This happened. And there's you wouldn't even imagine somebody saying ill or saying, oh, you're showing off or anything, it's more, wow, look at you go. Yes, you got this, and we cheer each other on. And that's really important to me. And so I think if we were all in this place where we're sparkling again from the inside, living our authentic selves, our authentic life, we can take these brave steps, and then the world will just be radiating and buzzing. So that's where it all stems from, and that's where I hope it will all be going.
I love. Thank you so much. Where can people find this book?
Great, thanks for asking. So on my website, leannezachar.com.au for Australia, that you can grab a couple of links on there. It's also available on Amazon, on Kindle or paperback.
Great. We love a Kindle book. We can take it wherever we go on our phone.
Exactly.
Yes. And we will have that information as well as any socials you've given us in the show notes so people can find you. Yes. Well, we have reached the part of the show where I ask every guest these two questions. So it is now your turn. The
Here we
first
go.
question is, yes, what sets your soul on fire?
You know what? Listening to my kids laughing sets my soul on fire, but
I love that.
dancing, as I said, and connecting to people. I've always been somebody who seems like I'm extroverted and all of that, and I am in a way, but when I go to a party, what really sets my soul on fire is just having a one-on-one, deep, beautiful conversation. So connection sets my soul on fire, real, authentic connection, and telling stories so we can make each other grow. And so this connection ties into dancing because you're physically connecting with somebody. It's Latin dancing, so I have to trust and surrender the lead to the leader. And the flow is incredible when you can know that you trust that person, that you can let loose. It's, as I said before, moving meditation. There's nothing better. It's stress release. I love it. And I'm getting all of that connection. You're smiling at your partner. You're creating something magical because every song you change partners. And so every song, you don't know what song is coming, you don't know who you're going to dance with next. And so every little dance is like an original piece of art that you create together. And, sometimes it's like, wow, what just happened? That was amazing, and nothing feels better. So for me, when I'm certainly like, oh gosh, I've been working so much, I really need to dance, which will be this weekend. I've had a lot on and I can't wait. So that's what sets my soul absolutely on fire.
I love that. Connection is so important, as we talked about community throughout the episode. So thank you for sharing that. That was really great. The second question is, if someone else is trying to figure out what sets their soul on fire, what advice would you
Mm.
give them?
Oh, I love that. So we touched on trying different things earlier, but my biggest life hack is returning to your past passion. What was it that you used to do when you were younger? What lit you up? What made time disappear because you were in your bubble, in your flow? And so, was it playing music, as the soundtrack to your dreams? Was it running across the grass if you were a sports person and feeling the wind in your hair? Was it painting, the colors of the rainbow? What was it that left you in this bubble, in this space where time stood still? Because that is going back to your essence. And I feel like that's what unlocks the return to self and the reigniting the spark. And then we, feel alive again. And I like to talk about be the artist of your life, ART, art. So awaken by returning to a past passion. We're reawakening our spark, our essence. Then reveal, once we've done that, we're brave enough to reveal, take off the mask that we talked about, take off the mask, reveal your authentic self. And then, wow, what a feeling that is. We can transform and we take brave steps of alignment and courageous steps into the life we always wanted to live, into the life we were born to live. And until we do those 3 steps, we can't jump to the end because we need to rebuild and honestly be authentically ourselves. And then we hear the whispers, we hear the downloads, we hear the callings, and we can put those big girl pants on and take brave steps of alignment. And then nothing feels better. And as we said, if there are bumps along the way, that's okay because we're on path and we're trying and it feels alive and amazing. So that would be my advice. And if it starts with that cup of tea on the grass or that lipstick on the mirror, then that's where it starts. And then think about, what did I used to love to do when I was younger? And how can I step back into that in some way, whether it's starting with a book, an online course, a group that you join, and let's go from there.
That was beautiful. And I'm just like, mic drop, that was it. Like,
Thank
that was
you.
so good. And you like did a whole sum of our entire show
Yeah,
and
well, we
wrapped it
were
up with
touched
a
on
pretty
everything.
bow.
So ART, that's what we want to be, the artist of our life. So that's what I'm really passionate about it.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay. Well, we will have your website and where people can find you in the show notes. People can find us at thesoulfire.com. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, the SoulFire Collective. And then our podcasts are located in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and you can find all of that at our website as well. Leanne, it was such a treat to have you. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
It's been so wonderful connecting with you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy.
And thank you to the listener, and we'll see you next time.